give my all my strength, all the gas in the tank, straight from work to the bank, hold my soul down to... Welcome back to Beyond the Mats, the podcast where we dive into the lives, stories, and mindsets of fighters and grapplers who dedicate their lives to the art. I'm your host, Ethan Geracia, and on this episode, I'm joined by Brown Belt out of Standard Jiujitsu, Noah Shaffner, competitor focusing on the ecological approach to jiu-jitsu training. Noah, welcome. Thank you for your time. I'll kind of give you a second to introduce yourself, how old you are, where you train at, where you live, and kind of just stuff like that.
Cool. Well, I'm Noah Shaffner. Like you said, I train under Greg Souders out in Rockville, Maryland. I've been training under him for a little bit under 5 years now, and yeah, I grapple full time as an athlete, as a passion, and both as a career. So teaching, cleaning at the gym, competing as much as I can, and taking any opportunities like this. So I appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. This is going to be an awesome episode for me personally, just because I know we were talking a little bit before about the ecological approach, and that's really the only way I've ever done jujitsu. So it's going to be cool getting to hear your side and hear your story so far.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we got that in common. I never trained anywhere else, so.
So let's kind of start with the first segment here before we jump into jujitsu, just kind of early life and before martial arts. What was life like for you growing up before you really started martial arts? Were you into other sports as a kid or any other hobbies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like about as stereotypical of a childhood as you can get. Just normal household. Played sports growing up. Never anything that I was particularly passionate about, but I played all the ball sports depending on what season it was, and was never very good at any of them. Both parents, siblings, went to school. I grew up in Maryland my whole life, so I've been in the DMV area since the beginning. And yeah, kind of just fucked around as a kid. Never really took anything seriously. I did fine in school, but once I started grappling, that was kind of the first thing that I had any sort of passion about and wanted to take seriously outside of a day-to-day.
I can totally kind of relate to that. I feel like I did a lot of sports too before, but then like once I did jujitsu, it was completely different than anything I've ever done before.
Yeah, and I think it helps that the first sport that I ended up being very passionate about, or just trade, I guess, or skill, whatever it may be, it also is the first thing that anyone ever told me that I could be good at or was good at. I wasn't exactly hearing that from my football or basketball or soccer coaches, so it makes it a little more motivating to take it seriously.
Yeah. So was Standard Jiu-Jitsu the first gym that you ever started at?
Yeah, yep. So I wanted to start training something. COVID had just begun, so there wasn't any sports or anything going on, and I was kind of just out in limbo, laying around in my house all day playing video games and not really having anything to do. So I looked into a bunch of different combat sports. I always enjoyed like just fighting and being competitive as a kid growing up. And my parents wouldn't let me do boxing, probably because I got plenty of concussions from football. So I managed to convince them to take me to take a jiu-jitsu class, and Standard was the closest one that they were willing to take me to. So I walked in, I was like 15 years old, and yeah, it kind of all popped off from there. I trained for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I felt the need to tell Greg that I wanted to take it very, very seriously, and I was very passionate and excited about it. And he told me if I took it seriously, he'd take me seriously. So 5 years later, here we are, still taking me seriously so far.
That's awesome to hear. So one of my questions was, when you were like a white belt, did you have any early struggles?
I think the biggest thing would probably be just the stereotypical experience of feeling very overwhelmed by the training, and obviously specifically at Standard, just with it actually being live training. I think it would have been a lot easier for me if my first year was at some gym where they have me static drill and convince me that I've learned a ton of moves that I'm actually kind of good at, and a bunch of false positive feedback that really has nothing to do with how good I am at grappling. But being put in a real competitive and productive training environment from the beginning is, one, obviously going to be very beneficial, but also very stressful and very difficult to manage. So that would probably be the biggest thing, honestly, is just as a 15-year-old cocky asshole, realizing that you aren't shit and you're bad at what you're doing and you really, really want to be good at it, which makes it even more frustrating that you're bad. But I don't think that's a very unique experience. So
Yeah. So I really like the ecological approach too. And for people who don't really know or haven't heard much about that, Can you kind of explain, in your words, what makes Greg's approach unique, or kind of just that ecological approach in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, really, Greg's approach is his approach. It's just it's not the ecological approach or the constraint set approach. It's just he has exposed himself to all this different literature and stuff in academia about how humans learn in an environment and how organisms learn in an environment in general, and taken that to build his own framework for how he approaches practice. But it's really just the general idea that when we're trying to learn something as a human, we have to approach it not as if we're computers that take in and store information and then can spit that information back out into action, but rather, like every other organism, we are subject to stimuli, and we organize around that stimuli over time, the more exposure that we have to it. And so if we want to develop a skill like grappling, where there's a bunch of different micro or macro stimuli or whatever else you want to call it, where there's a ton of things happening at once and it's a very chaotic environment, you constrain it in such a way where you can give people exposure to all of the valuable stimuli that would develop skill without it breaking out into chaos and just being an overwhelming fight every single time where they're not focusing on anything but not having a heart attack.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like a lot of people kind of overlook the ecological approach, or like you said, just like different approaches in general, because they're like so used to training the way that they've been training for so long that they just stick to that and they're too stubborn. But I really like that, how it's not the ecological approach or not the constraint led approach, just like kind of his specific approach, like you said. I think that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people on the internet made, is that like the ecological approach is Greg's, or that is what he does. It is it's a little bit more nuanced than that. It's just whatever it may be that causes people to be stubborn or set in their ways. If people can be productive and be successful in any methodology, there are going to be people that practice that same methodology that assume that is the reason for the success. But you have to realize that there's a lot of gray area, and there's not really a clear input and output when it comes to producing skill in something or in somebody. So these are all just assumptions that people make. We have been doing this thing this way for this amount of time, and people are having success with it. Why would we change anything? Why would changing anything add any benefit or make it more productive or more efficient? But the reality is we've just because you've been doing something a certain way for any amount of time has nothing to do with how effective it actually is. I mean, how many years did we spend thinking that the Earth was the center of the universe? It's it was very believed by a lot of people, but it didn't make it any more true.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. So let's kind of jump into your competition mindset now. You've had some impressive competition results in just a few years. Do you have one favorite moment specifically from one of your matches?
I don't know if I've competed at a level that is close enough to what I aspire to really have a favorite moment. I mean, it's kind of all just felt like building blocks and trying to expose myself to the competition environment and become good as a competitor and not just as a grappler. But I mean, one of the moments that would probably stand out in my mind is the Ottawa ADCC Canada Open a couple years back. There wasn't anything significant about the tournament itself. I was like 16 or 17, and it was an intermediate bracket, but it was really more so just the experience of going out there with Greg and DeAndre and seeing DeAndre perform at the highest level and performing really, really well myself. I got my first sponsorship from that performance, and it was the first time that I really felt like I could perform well at any level, and I had any sort of confidence going into a tournament, and that confidence ended up paying off. And so that would probably just be my first exposure to what the competition environment could feel like and what the experience could be like if I continued down this path. But really, I don't think I'm I don't think I'm far along enough on that path to have a experience that I particularly value. It's all wonderful. I enjoy it all, but I'm still a long ways to go from where I want to be. So.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So is that kind of the path you're trying to go more down, the competition path, or are you not sure yet, or are you trying to go more down the coaching path?
No, no, I'm very sure. Yeah, I mean, my passion and what I want to do in life at the moment is become an elite competitor. I want to be one of the best grapplers on the planet, at least in my weight class or in general, whatever that means. And it's pretty arbitrary, but I want to be the best grappler that I can be, and I enjoy being an athlete. I enjoy competing. I enjoy demonstrating my skills against other people and trying to beat them. But obviously, being passionate about grappling itself, I also enjoy talking about it and teaching. And obviously, you don't make that much money competing itself within itself, so you have to go out of your way to take any other opportunity using that skill to make money elsewhere, whether it be privates or seminars or podcasts or whatever else it may be. But all of that is really secondary to what I'm passionate about, which is the training the skill itself and competing.
So do you kind of, I think I saw on the Standard Jiu-Jitsu Instagram or something that you guys were starting the kids classes again, you and Sid. Do you still help coach that, or how do you guys do
Yes.
that?
Greg had a kids program a while back, and then he ended up stopping. And he enjoyed the kids program, but it was more so just because of the culture around it and the parents and everything. And he really wanted to focus more so on his adult competitors. And so we hadn't had a kids program at Standard for a little while. And then obviously with me and Sid trying to take the sport more seriously year by year, and both of us having our own individual level of success. Sid in particular has been going on a real hot streak recently. Obviously, we don't want to have normal jobs, and we want to try and contribute to Standard as much as we can, just because of how much it's done for us. And so Greg gave us the opportunity. He said if we wanted to start it up, we could co-own the kids program. We would have to be responsible for everything and all the business aspects of it and the customer service aspects of it, and we would be the instructors and managing memberships and everything. And me and Sid took it on, and we started up the kids program probably about beginning of July. July 4th was our first class. So yeah, I mean, it's been wonderful. Me and him are both the instructors and owners of the program, quote unquote, but it's all run through Standard. So it's been a wonderful experience. We're slowly but surely building up the basic kids. All the kids that we have had sign up and have been with us for a few months have been making great progress, which is to be expected. It's really wonderful teaching kids. It is very enjoyable, and I am very empathetic to Greg's perspective of the culture and parents being the negative aspect of it.
Yeah, dude, I love that because when I was really training out here, I used to coach the kids classes for like a year and a half. I was assisting her with coaching all the kids classes, and I feel like you just learn so much more when you're explaining it to like the kids. It really makes it easier to understand a lot of jujitsu, I feel like.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful test to how easily I can convey important information when it comes to grappling. And I think that's definitely a skill that I need to work on, where minimizing how much explanation is needed or how many words is needed to convey an idea. Because, kids' attention span lasts maybe 15, 30 seconds. So anything beyond that is just completely and totally useless. So really trying to improve on that aspect of my teaching and communication has been a productive experience for sure. It's definitely going to make me a better coach, but it's also frustrating at the same time, which usually means you're learning something. So
Oh yeah, kids are crazy, dude. I don't know what age you guys do over there, but I think the youngest we start is like four to like 11, and like yeah, kids their attention span is like so short and they just do what they want. So I think coaching kids is definitely harder than coaching adults just because they're so unpredictable.
well, I actually think coaching kids is easier. I mean, they're obviously, it depends on what your metric for easier or harder is, but if you are precise with your communication and you are direct about what you want them to do, they will just do it, because unlike adults, they have no frame of reference for what is right or wrong, or the likelihood that they have some idealized movement or technique in their mind is much less than the chances of an adult having that. And so with adults, you see a lot of attempted replication outside of what the teacher is actually just telling them to do. Whereas, if you tell a kid, hey, keep your hands on them and keep their hands off of you, that is exactly what they are going to do, to the extent where they will literally break their body trying to make it happen, which, good or bad, is definitely an intentional student, which is what you really want. Versus adults, I think, tend to be a little bit more distracted or in their own heads or have a little bit too much frame of reference that they're referring to. So
No, that makes sense when you put it like that. I was kind of more thinking of just the attention span and the kids having
yeah,
short
that
attention span, but
aspect of it, adults
yeah.
are definitely easier for sure.
Yeah, but the way you put it, yeah, I completely see your point of view too. The kids like kind of having that they don't have like any prior experiences to compare
Yeah.
that to, or
Well,
like
kids are newer to the world, so they're
yeah.
already on a daily basis. Everything that they're doing is just playing and experimenting to learn, which is what we're encouraging. And the more that you grow up in the world that we live in now, the more detached that you become from that sort of lifestyle. And so, before they've become an adult and become detached, from all of that, that's probably the prime time to try and get them to explore whatever it is that they want to explore.
Yeah, I love it. Do you guys have a lot of kids in your class that compete yet? I know you kind of just said you got it started, but is that kind of one thing you guys are gearing
No, I
towards?
mean, no, we don't go out of our way to make any kids sign up for any competitions. Not right now. We're really just focused on building up the room and the culture. But we
Yeah.
definitely have some kids that compete. Like we have a kid, Nico, who's already been training for some time now. He's very, very, very skilled, good wrestler, good grappler. The parents are wonderful, very supportive, very. Uh, it's very clear that his parents just want him to do what it is that he enjoys, and he is a very, very passionate kid, likes grappling and competes as much as he can, and always performs very, very well, which is wonderful to see. But we really can't take too much credit for that. Obviously, it's just it's really up to the kids and their parents at the end of the day. Right now, we just want to make sure that in the time that we have with them in the room, they're having as much fun and as productive of a training session as possible.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. I'm glad you guys brought back the kids program. I don't know. I'm kind of biased because I used to coach the kids programs, but I feel like that's really cool that you guys brought that back.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I think it's going to be really cool to see in a couple of years having some kids kind of coming up through the pipeline and growing up in the kids program, and then sort of quote unquote graduating to the actual standard adult program and seeing if any of them end up having success on the scene or end up sticking around. So I'm really excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, that is going to be awesome, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's in really good hands with you and Sid. So that's going to be cool to watch.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. So let's kind of jump into the next segment here, life beyond the mats. So our podcast is all about the person, the fighter beyond the mats. What does your life look like outside jujitsu for you right now?
I don't really have much of a life outside of jiu-jitsu, really. I mean, I'm coming back from a meniscus surgery, so I have a little bit more time to myself. But as of recently, starting my training schedule back up again, pretty much everything in between the times that I'm at the gym is just trying to make sure that I am healthy and have as productive of a time at the gym as possible. So, like, the only interests that I really have outside of jiu-jitsu right now, I mean, I enjoy reading, I enjoy playing video games and hanging out with friends, but all my friends are guys from the gym, and I don't really have time for gaming or reading at the moment. So, there's honestly not much of a life beyond the mats for me at the moment, which is not a complaint one bit. I've chose to immerse myself in this as much as possible. I didn't even when I was still in school. I wouldn't go to school. I would show up at high school and just walk all the way back to a cafe or take a bus or something all the way back to home or Standard and either train or watch film or work out, whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, pretty much throughout the week, my whole day is spent at the gym more or less, or rushing somewhere else before I have to go back to the gym. But yeah, and unfortunately, I wish I was more of an interesting person outside of it. It'd probably be a better answer.
No, I feel like that's a good answer, honestly, because you could just dedicate yourself so much to the art, and just kind of stay out of trouble. Sometimes boring is good.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I think it's not really as much as a boring thing. I think really being bored would probably be my worst enemy. That's really when I would
Oh
start
yeah,
to mess around and do dumb shit as a kid. But it's really just day by day, always having the same intention for what it is that I want to do, not just with my day, but with my life. And the people that I'm surrounded by are all very similarly oriented. So it
no,
makes it a lot easier to stay out of trouble and make sure that what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is actually contributing to what it is I want out of life.
yeah, 100%. I was gonna say too, like that helps you just reach your goals, having those like-minded people all trying to reach the same goals as you.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do you, I know you said you don't really do much outside of jujitsu, but is there like anything particularly that you like that balances or just like kind of grounds you after a hard day of training, kind of like calms you down?
I don't know if it's calming. I guess it depends on the game, but just as a way to kind of detach or not have to think about anything that actually matters for a second. I've always played video games like growing up and even now when I can find the time. So that would usually be like the first thing I would go towards, or um, either that or just hanging out with friends at the house or going out and getting food and walking around and seeing the world. But I mean, really, I'm kind of a homebody or a gym body. So outside of that, I mean, it would really just be TV, movies, books, video games, whatever else it may be.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I just like staying inside movies, games. So we'll kind of do the closing segment here. I just got some quick questions. What's your favorite submission right now?
I don't know if I have a favorite submission in particular. I guess I would say anything where the head and arm is binded together. I think I've always been kind of inclined to go towards that. I had a lot of success with it early, and then Greg oriented me towards it, where it was like, hey, if you have a knack for something, try to explore it as much as you can and really go towards it so you can, obviously, while still being generally skilled, it's always good to have some sort of specialization that you can count on or go towards. So whether it's, triangles or arm strangles, having the head and arm connected together has always made me feel very confident that I can finish. Obviously, having the option of both breaking and strangling simultaneously, depending on the specific connection. And yeah, I don't know. I've always had a lot of success finishing from those alignments. I guess specifically it would be arm and guillotines. I usually have a lot of success finishing, and obviously arm and guillotines where you're behind the elbow gives you a lot of access to still being able to take your partner's back or at least end up on top. And so it's always felt very strong as a submission to me, and felt like it's never really taken me too far out of position, and always given me a path back to more dominant positions if I'm not able to finish the threat.
I like head and arm or just head and arms a lot. In your opinion, who's the toughest training partner at Standard?
It's DeAndre Corbett. And nobody comes close.
Does he help you get ready for competitions a lot?
I mean, not deliberately. I mean, he's not going to go out of his way to help me get ready for anything. He's already at a world-class level, competing at a elite level. So I wouldn't expect him to, and he's never had any responsibility to. But the reality is me being in the room while he's preparing for all the big competitions, which is obviously going to be what Greg is oriented around and the training protocols are oriented around, is always going to make everybody else better by osmosis, because it's not like anybody doesn't need to learn or have exposure to something that DeAndre does if he's the best guy in the room. And so, indirectly, of course, being able to train with him multiple times a week and really just being able to put your hands on that high level of a body consistently is going to make you much more skilled, much quicker. But yeah, I guess that's really the only way that DeAndre would be preparing me for competitions. I don't compete in anything important enough yet to ask that of him. So
yeah. Kind of not.
We're all always in the room together, helping each other prepare for whatever is coming up for anybody that's from Standard.
I love that. So what's your go-to post-training meal?
Probably anything that's anything that's tropical and drinkable. So whether it's like acai, smoothies, juices, that's usually the most refreshing and tasty thing that I always want after training. That's not gonna make me feel sick, or I'm not going to have enough of an appetite to eat, just because I always have a hard time getting an appetite right after training. And it usually takes a couple hours for the hunger to really kick in. And so anything that's kind of a full meal with protein and carbs and sitting down and eating it off a plate is usually a little bit more so something I'm just making myself eat for performance reasons. But I'll always be ready to crush like a juice or a smoothie, whatever else it may be.
We'll wrap it up with this last question here. What's one piece of advice that you would have for up-and-coming white belts or just anyone looking to get into jiu-jitsu?
I guess it would be like a two-part piece of advice. Is one, make sure that the gym you are training at is almost entirely, if not entirely, engaging in live practice, meaning you guys are resisting what it is that you are trying to do to each other. And like uncooperative, unscripted, it is real live training. And if you're not in an environment like that, either take yourself out of it and don't train there, or try and work your way around it where you can be at a gym but run your own training at the very least. Even if it means not training at a gym but just training in your own garage. And the reason for that would be the second part, which is the most important thing that you can have, not just on a daily basis going into training, but overall for skill development. What is your intention for that session? What is your intention in general with what skills you want to develop? And making sure that while you are training, it's not just, oh, I came in today and I want to work on entanglements or arm bars, but something that it doesn't require any buzzwords, any labeling, but just there is a physical effect that you were trying to create, or a condition that you were trying to create and maintain in your mind. And for whatever reason it may be, you are going to be as intentional as possible about going towards that for the entire time that you're practicing. So whether it's keeping more hands on your partner than they have on you, or keeping inside position, or keeping your partner destabilized at all times, or keeping your head in front of your partner, whatever else it may be, as specific or general as you'd like to get, just making sure that every practice is intentional the entire time.
Awesome. That's beautiful. I feel like that's a really unique piece of advice. Not a lot of people say that, so that's going to be very useful for a lot of people, I feel like.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. So Noah, we'll kind of wrap it up now. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. This has been a real special episode for me. I really love what you guys are doing at Standard Jiu-Jitsu and everything. You guys and Greg. Is there anything you want to shout out? I'll kind of let you shout out training partners, sponsors, or if you just want to shout out your social media.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all the support, and I appreciate you having me on and letting me yap a little bit. But really, it's always going to be the same people I have to thank. And, shout out to everyone at Standard, all my training partners, Greg for giving me every opportunity that he could to allow me to pursue what it is that I want to pursue. All the sponsors, obviously, AP has helped me out since the very beginning of my career with making sure that I always have gear and making sure that I'm able to make it out to the big major tournaments and helping me out with things like that. BJJ Mental Models recently picked me up, and they've helped me out a lot with tournament registrations. And so I always appreciate anybody who's willing to come through for me so I can try and put myself out there a little bit more, even if it's not paying for a registration, but just giving me a podcast opportunity or a call or something like this. And a really big shout out to Rob Wilson. He's on Instagram as the check engine light. My strength and conditioning coach. I recently started working with him a few months, or really the beginning of this year. I had a lot of stuff not go my way health-wise this year, and he's made a really, really big difference in helping me come out of those holes and making sure that I'm able to make my way back into training both safely and efficiently. And I really, really am excited to continue working with him. He's been with DeAndre and Gavin for a really long time, and he's turned both of them into fucking physical specimens. So I'm hoping in a few years I'll be able to start performing like the same. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I'm surrounded by a lot of people that are facilitating the career that I'm trying to build.
Well said. Yeah, thank you again for your time, and yeah, I'm definitely gonna stay tuned, and I'm excited to see where you guys take it next. The journey, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, man, me too. I appreciate everyone who's watching and supporting, and anyone who's been hating. We appreciate you too.
Well, guys, that is it for this week's episode of Beyond the Mats. Thank you for tuning in, and if you've made it this far, show some love by dropping a follow or a review and following the show on Instagram at Beyond the Mats. We got some big things coming and some awesome guests planned, so you guys stay tuned, and we'll see you next week, Beyond the Mats.
With the past, I never regret it. Yeah, I did it for myself, I ain't searching for credit. Said I couldn't do it, they probably shouldn't have said it. Times changed what it was, yeah, you can